Hello, welcome to our presentation. This is Group 12 for CS595 in winter of 2021. Our group project is the MIDI Visualizer. It is a simple audio-visual visual system, simple audio-visual system for electronic musicians. Don't say it too fast, you'll get tongue-tied. So what is the problem here? Well, there are an increasing number of solo musicians and musicians in bands using electronic music equipment. And with that comes also, a need for audio-visual systems in live performances. Most of these that are on offer are either quite complicated, and you probably would do best having some kind of background in programming. Or they are very expensive. And we're trying to provide a solution that is both free and open source and easy to understand for musicians that might not have the same kind of degree that we do. So, our proposed solution is to create a simple platform that takes in the data from instruments like this and, uses the MIDI coming out of it to move around some images on the display screen that they're using so that they can make those interesting audio-visual performances. For a design level approach, we are basically taking a two-window solution where on one window we have a GUI where we can upload images, we can change things about how we want the images to be controlled. We can set up what things we want to trigger the different changes in the images, and we also want to be able to put multiple images on a screen. And we'll also have a viewing window that can take images that we're putting in, and we will be able to see them moving around, and we'll be able to put that to full screen so that whatever we are projecting on or viewing for our music video, we can see the whole big picture. From an implementation side of things, basically, we're going to be using SDL2 and C++ to handle the visuals. We will be using the Juice MIDI library to take user inputs, and we are also using a SDL2 library called KISS for all of our GUI assets and functionality. Our program structure looks like this, where on the top we have the SDL2 layer that's handling all of the image rendering and taking in all of the data for what the images are doing. And on the bottom we have the MIDI layer that is listening to all of the hardware, like what you see in front of you here. And we have a translational layer that's going to take the data coming from the hardware and translate it into something that SDL2 can understand. Our final results for this project end up looking something like this. We are quite happy with the results. So we have the same two-window approach that we set out to do in our initial plan. We were able to load up to 15 images into a single scene, and we're able to edit and add more bindings to it. We can add as many as we like and affect the X, Y, height, width, scale, and rotation of those images that we insert into a scene. Right now we also support having up to 5 different scenes that you can change on the fly. Yeah, that's what the whole thing does. As far as communication on this project, we started using Taiga, but we found it was really slow, and that all of the UI and sort of structure of that program was geared way more towards like web developers than it was groups building desktop applications. There was like sections for backend and sections for the database and all of these different things that it wanted you to use that kind of bogged everything down and made the interface confusing. So we ended up just having a post that had just all the action items on it in our Discord. And as things got done, we crossed them off. As we found new bugs, we added them to the list. And everyone kind of had their own things to do, and just we kept it pinned, and everyone could see it. Everyone knew what was going on, and we found it was much faster and easier to just check the post, see what you're doing today. All right, cool. As for the broader impact on this project, you know, we're quite happy with the results, but I don't think this is something that we would be able to put out as something that's finished, either like for sale for a small fee, or even as a full free open source supported piece of software. It's definitely more of a proof of concept, just to show that you can do something like this. And I would love to see it as something that could get someone into those really cool FOSS AV systems, you know, like Pure Data or VVVV, that are significantly more complicated and feature-rich than ours, but also have a deeper learning curve. So I think, you know, finding something like this whenever you're interested in these kinds of systems to kind of help you dip your toe into the water a little bit before you dive right into something much more complicated, has their place in the software world. And we were quite happy to provide that. I just leave this up on GitHub so that anyone that's interested in, you know, AV stuff, or they're interested in MIDI or AV programming, rendering programming, can check it out. So let's take a look at the program itself. So we've got this executable that we can run right here. And what we will need if we are using this is we're going to need some pictures. So I've got this folder on my C drive full of cool looking stuff in here that we can use. The first thing we want to do is we want to hook up our MIDI device. We've got this MPC right here that we're going to be able to spit MIDI data out of, and it's going into an audio and MIDI interface. The images are going to be loaded in order from lowest to highest. So the first image you put in is going to be your background, and the one you put in on top of that is going to come afterwards. Let's see here. What do we want to use as a background? Grid. Grid's good. Grids are cool. pic/grid.png. Great. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to set the X with a control change. Going to listen to that, and we're going to use this control change knob number 1 right here. And we're also going to set the Y with a control change. We're going to set that with control change 2. So to see what that looks like, we can hit start, and we can see that we can move this big grid image back and forth with the X, and we can move it up and down with this knob that's now controlling the Y. Cool. We do have a little sequence built in here. So what we can do now is we can go to the track that all of our MIDI stuff is getting handled on, and we can go into this guy. And let's go ahead and add a new automation for modulation. And we can, first I want to zoom out to see the whole thing, and we can draw this out. So let's do something where we scoot up here and then scoot back down and then scoot up again and go down again. Let's try that. Cool. So our sequencer is essentially recording all of the steps that our knob could be on and is sending that out through its MIDI port into our video system. We can go ahead and add another one for the Y. Come on now. Add new track, MIDI CC, 2 breath. This one we can scoop down and come back up, make a big W. So now we're able to move down the Y as well as the X. So we've got now a small window where we can preview things. You know, if we play, we can still see all of that happening. Let's set one more thing with CCs before we start adding in new notes. We can set the rotation. Let's listen to this on controller number 3. Cool. So now we can spin it if we want to. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll do add new track, MIDI CC, CC3. This one, let's just do a slow ramp up. Just like that. So it'll just be slowly be turning. Maybe not that slow. Press start. That's pretty cool. So we know we can sequence in those changes, but let's do something that we can actually use the notes that we're playing to get out of. So let's go back to main and go back to our instrument track. We've got these kick drums that are going all the time. That's our main kick drum. So let's add something that reacts to that. Let's find this hand. It's a good hand. We'll go pick slash hand 1.png. Hand shows up there. So let's go ahead and make something that sets the X 0.5. Oh, got an error message because I didn't type in the right thing. 0.5, and we want this to be a note on, and we want the note to be our kick drum. So our hand moved to the halfway position on the screen. We do the same thing with Y. So now, when we play this, our hand's going to be in the middle of the screen. Since we're just setting the X and Y, and we're not changing it, nothing is going to happen to this. But one thing we can do is we can set the X to 1.5, 1.2. Any number greater than 1 is going to be off the screen. And we can listen to this other kick drum sound that plays sometimes. And so now whenever we run it, we get a hand that disappears occasionally. Cool. So let's switch it out with a different hand. So let's add pick hand 2. Whoop. Yep. If we add something that is not having the right extension, or it's not the correct file path or something like that, we will get a warning message there as well. So we're going to add that hand in, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the other hand, but this time we're going to use the other kick drum note. So let's listen to that one. Let's set the Y, 0.5, note on, and listen again. And then let's set the Y to 1.5 and listen to this kick drum. And you will notice that this binding selector drop down here, we can actually, if we want to go back and change any of our bindings, we can click them and they will be populated, and we can change them if we want to. Or we can make a new one instead whenever we hit the listen button. But let's see what this looks like. We can press F11 to go full screen. So we're hitting the start button, and we can hit start on here. And we see that whenever this kick drum plays, we get a claw hand instead of a regular hand. We don't even have to have the sequence running, we can just change it ourselves, as well as changing all the aspects of this background too whenever we want. So, you know. One last thing that we might put in here. Let's go ahead and add one more image. Let's add in some eyes. Let's do I3. I3 looks like a good eye. I3.png. Cool, it's up there. So let's set the X of this to 0.5. Let's have it right in the middle of the screen. With a note on message from our hi-hat, which should be that. So cool. And the X, let's set it a quarter down. So 0.25 from the top, and listen to that again. And let's take it off the screen. Let's set the X to 1.5 with a note off of D1. So now, when we start, we get to make it disappear, and I guess it doesn't want to come back whenever we play it. That's okay. We can set the X back to 0.5. We can find that set X, and let's listen for this note instead. Cool. So now, whenever that note plays, we get those eyes that flash up on the screen really quick. And we can keep adding images and, you know, controlling things with them through all these different notes. But I think you get the idea. I think that's a good enough demo. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. It's been a great semester, and our team has been absolutely wonderful. I'm quite proud of everything we've accomplished. And even though there definitely are still some kinks to work out here, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. So, thanks for watching, and thanks for teaching our class. Bye now.